Hello, my name is Amir El-Masry. I'm an actor. We are introducing our film In Camera.
My name is Naqqash Khalid and I'm the director of In Camera. So the idea for the film I had maybe 8 years before I made the film. I think how I work is I kind of just write loads of things in my notes app and then I sit down and Frankenstein it all together. I knew I wanted to write a fairy tale. I felt like the actor was kind of like the perfect vehicle to talk about identity and identity politics in a way that I wanted to satirize. And I met Amir through our mutual friend Alana. We had dinner, it was great. I was aware of Amir's work too and thought he was an incredible actor and wanted to work with him.
Naqqash had sent me a 200-page Bible treatment, most of which were like paintings, patterns, and references to like artists. So Muhammad Ali, Jean-Paul Belmondo, the way a ballet dancer moves in the space. There were particular photos of Muhammad Ali where he was lying on a deck chair, just filling the space, particularly interesting. And the idea of like filling the frame. The aim of the character was to always exude his presence.
In Camera is about an actor who's kind of navigating a nightmarish version of the film industry. He's not doing very well. He takes it upon himself to find a new part to play, and that takes us down like a weird, absurd path. But also, it's not about that at all. It's about whatever you want it to be about. It's open for interpretation, for sure. Do you know what? It's been incredibly interesting to share this with audiences and all different types of audiences. It's almost been like a sociological experiment in some cases, because sometimes I'm having a conversation where people have seen the film, and the kinds of conversations I'm having, I'm like, have you seen the film? What film did you see? I don't know how to articulate it in a really plain way. I think it's quite provoking. I think it's provoked quite a few people.
Say it the way you should say it.
Ooh, it's a bit mad. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a bit mad.
What's interesting is that we screened it at several different countries. Depending on that certain country, they would laugh either really dark moments or laugh at the like plain like for example, when we screened it here in Cairo, a lot of people were laughing at the audition process because that's what is a reality. Can you do another voice? Yeah, do it in a Middle Eastern voice. Is that okay? Because that's how I see you and that's how you should be talking.
It's been funny.
There's no wrong or right way of laughing at something. Like, it's not like we should judge anyone for like finding a particular bit of the film funny or not funny. It's just interesting because maybe what we are wired to think is different to someone else. So
I think the truth is, when beginning this film, I really rejected this burden of having to like educate or make things for a particular viewpoint. I gave myself the permission to be the default. For me, Amir, Naban, like people that look like us, like going in as if we are the default. I think a lot of the times when you're coming from a perspective that is other, you kind of like self-orientalize or other yourself in the process of making the thing that you're making. And I was very conscious of how I navigate my life, and I'm sure probably how you navigate your life. We are the default. It's only when we come up against a system that tells us that we are not, or we are other in some way. And I think when making the film, I really wanted to give myself the permission and the freedom that I know my white male counterparts have already, and not try to cater to people with this film. I think oftentimes there's this pressure to make like quote important films if you're coming from a marginal perspective, and films that educate people or make them feel good. And I just don't care about that. I really want to make the things that I want to make in the way that I want to make it. That is the thing that I think is exciting, because I think if more of us approach our art and work like that, it creates more space for other people. If I was like 15, 16 and seeing something like In Camera, I think I'd be like incredibly excited at how weird and strange it is. We very rarely get to exist in art house spaces, so I think it's exciting to make a film that is so formally challenging as playing with all of the tools of the medium and is doing things a little bit differently. I don't really care to fit in. I just want to do things my way, you know?
What excited me most was the fact that we are tackling a subject matter that is super relatable to all three of us, and the fact that we were building these characters, like we got a script, we were trying to also figure out what our objective is as a person in relation to the other person, but also within ourselves. It was interesting because playing Conrad, there were moments where just in my own lane, like just playing someone who is very happy and content in the career that he's in and wanting to carry that on, and then also playing that version of Aiden thinks other people are. Playing those two characters in a way in one is super interesting, and that's why we had an amazing rehearsal process that was really cyclical, because we could do it several different ways. We could do it in one way that is just completely straight, and another way that feels very Pinteresque. and feels like it's not normal. Like it's not in a world in which is reality. It's a world in someone's brain. It was really trippy to do that. And I remember sometimes like Naqqash would tell me like, can you like do the scene again, but like give him nothing. There'd be moments where I'd have a whole monologue and then just not do anything. We won't tell him and then just see how he responds. We would start like seeing each other as not real, like as cats or like animals or whatever. And like I'd start endowing him as a cat. How far-fetched and bizarre can we go with this?
It was like making strange those interactions in really almost quite mundane ways. And like the film has like a real dream logic to it. Like it has like its own kind of atmosphere. Like I remember in the rehearsal process, we hit this kind of like atmosphere, and I think you and Rory were like, oh, we shouldn't touch it now. And as soon as we found it, we kind of like backed off from it.
So
but
true.
Tuning into the same frequency almost. That's when like incredibly exciting work can happen. And then the editing process, which is really exciting too. That's when you really have to almost reconstruct the story and give it a logic and play with different interpretations that you've messed around with during production. And that was a really extensive experience. But I had so much fun. I love editing.
You had like 55 hours, is that right?
Yeah, 55 hours, long takes. I love them.
It could have been another movie.
Do you know what it is? I see my role as the director like a meal prep service. I'm giving you all of the ingredients, but I failed to give you the recipe. I'm sorry about that. And you can make of it whatever you will, you know? Some people will make a soup, some people will make a roast, and whatever you make, that's totally fine. I think I've accepted I've given what I can give, and now it's up to you.
Some people make koshari out of it.
Exactly, which I tried yesterday for the first time. Incredible.
I told him that it was his first time having koshari, and he did the whole tour, you know, the like the sauce and little dab of the chili and all that stuff.
It was a performance.
Yeah, he was performing.
It was a one-man show. I think when people ask me if an industry is changing, I usually say I just got here because I did. So I feel like I could answer that question in like 5 years, but I really wanted to respond to kind of like the cultural conversation around identity politics, which I find in a Western context to be quite hollow. Like this idea that black and brown faces in high places will like liberate people. And we know from like our previous prime minister and people who have occupied positions of power, that's just simply not true. I think there's this like feeling almost that I wanted to satirize, that there can only be one almost. And there's a lot of like essentialism when there's conversations around representation, like they have a token and that's the chosen representative and there's no space for anybody else. And I find like a lot of those conversations to be really vacuous and frankly like hilarious as well. So I really wanted to like poke fun at like these systems.
I think it is interesting that concept of like that there can only be one. A fear that was instilled in a lot of us in the industry. The fact that we were fighting for scraps. We're fighting to be in that room that was filled with 90% middle-class white people. I quite like that the film kind of flips the script in a way, but also has its protagonist with that insecurity of that there can only be one, even though they both occupy different spaces. One is an actor and one is in fashion. But because it's so ingrained in us that there are limited opportunities for us, we have to be at the top of the food chain. We don't get many opportunities, and the opportunities that we do get are very limiting and like put us in a box. Like you're either, you know, a stereotypical like terrorist or refugee with zero lines or zero agenda or like input in the actual script. You're like a byproduct of the main protagonist's like journey. I do feel though, now it's still not equal, still not balanced. You still have to work twice as hard as someone who maybe hasn't gone through those trials and tribulations, let's say. Even if you have proven yourself countless times, you still have to prove yourself double than someone else who may have had to prove themselves once.
You know what it is? I'm so excited to just make more things. I think it's making your first film is like almost learning to walk. I realize I've got so much I want to say and so many things I want to try and experiment. I just can't wait to keep making things. And I think I have to kind of go back to not being able to imagine what an audience is like and going back to being quite naive, which I'm excited to do. Yeah.
What's interesting and like inspiring, a lot of production companies are very super excited about him and interested to like make stuff with him, having seen in camera. He doesn't also mind like playing and like even just making a short film or a music video or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be stereotypical progression of like, once you've made your movie, you have to stay on that track and make 3 other movies and that's your slate.
I think it's like really exciting to like reimagine what a career could be. Like, I'm not really a careerist. I just want to do what I want to do and just keep making work that I feel excited by. But what I will say is I really want to direct Scooby-Doo. So if you have the rights to Scooby-Doo, whoever has the rights to Scooby-Doo, call me, you know?
Scooby-Doo.
I want to make that film.